To his left, he saw the other regiments, men from New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan. Men like these, he thought, just farmers and shopkeepers, and now we are all soldiers, and now we are about to die. The heavy round face was looking at him, the hard look of a man who had also understood, who had seen all the stupidity, who knew, after all, that the gold stars were often mindless decoration, that the army was led not by symbols, but by the fallible egos and blind fantasies of men. Jeff Shara, Gods and Generals. Hello and welcome back to the Well House Exorcism. This is your most amazing, fantastic, springy, happy, and humble hostess, Shanna.
PJ.
It's worse every time with you.
I had one, and I forgot it. I had a good one to top you, and then it's gone.
Mine just comes off the cuff every week. Springy.
He is special, I will say. So, I'm Laura.
And I am Ray.
Wonderful. No one else had a good tagline like Ghost is with the most?
One
I
of
was
these
gonna
days
say,
I will.
You should steal that. You should totally just take that. That should be yours.
I can't.
It should be yours.
No.
I give it to you. It is my gift.
Can I be the ghostess with mostest?
No.
No.
Oh.
But
How about now?
Ghoul can want to have fun. How about that?
Oh.
Anyway.
The gabagool.
Send it back. Today we are finishing up our mini-series on Gettysburg. It feels like we just started this yesterday, but actually it was like 2 months ago. That's crazy.
Long time coming.
Long time coming.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to finish up by kind of spreading out to the ends of the battle. So the different farms and a very famous bridge, actually, that was used at the beginning and the end of the actual battle. So tonight we're going to have Ray discuss the Daniel Lady Farm. And PJ is discussing the Spangler Farm. Laura is going to discuss the Rose Farm. And then I'm going to finish up with the Sachs-covered bridge. So Ray, take it away with the Daniel Lady Farm.
Okay. So tonight I'm going to discuss a little bit about the Daniel Lady Farm, hereinafter commonly referred to as the Lady Farm.
Really?
Yes. Actually, in the literature, that's what they say. They just kind of refer to it as the Lady Farm. And I think that can be interpreted in other ways. But
I guess you guys aren't allowed to go. Sorry, PJ and Ray. Bye.
no Lady Farm for us, PJ.
Yeah, apparently.
Go find your man farm.
But let me tell you, back in
I don't want to go there.
Poor Ray. He has all his research.
Oh, we stopped him.
So, the Lady Farm was not all that back in 1863. All right, at the height of the Civil War. Let me give you a little bit of the background. With the Daniel Lady Farm, it was chartered, it was deeded by King George in the 18th century, but Mr. Lady didn't actually purchase the Lady Farm until 1840 from a public auction.
His last name is so
sorry.
unfortunate.
Mr. Lady.
Oh.
Mr. Lady.
I mean, like, it is his last name,
I know, it's just so
guys.
unfortunate.
Yes, yes. He married a little over 10 years later to a lady named Rebecca.
Oh.
It would be funny if her name were a lady. Can you imagine,
he had
Lady?
terrible voice, and he tried to
I'm just gonna
deepen it.
all right. I thought I was going to stay away from this, but now I'm going to lean into it.
You have to.
I wonder if he had a kid who was a doctor. Can you imagine, Dr. Lady?
Dr. Lady, come here, please.
Oh, we're
Yes,
so mean.
yes, and he ended up having 7 children.
Lady children.
No, they weren't all lady children.
No, they were lady children.
Ladies' children.
Well, just like you'd be hating.
He definitely
like
had
your
a
kids are
daughter
hating
named
children.
Sarah
Children.
Jane,
Yeah.
and
Ladies' children.
Anyway, continue.
Yes.
It should be called Lady, right?
The lady.
Like the
Where's the lady of the house? We're all here.
there's the
Sorry.
hating children.
There's so much now. I didn't realize his last name was Lady till now. No, just,
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, Ray. Continue.
what did you think Daniel Lady Farm?
I don't
The
know.
Daniel Ladies?
I'm making soup for dinner. Where's the lady ladle?
Lady ladle. Oh my goodness.
Oh no.
Everything would be embroidered with lady.
We're not gonna get through this.
Did I mention Mr. Lady purchased his house from a public auction?
Sold to the lady in the back.
Yes. And he ended up marrying a woman named Rebecca. Mr.
A lady
and Mrs. Yes.
named Rebecca.
Mr. and Mrs. Lady had 7 children.
That's actually not that many for that time period. I think it'd be like 13 or 14.
They got ladied
Lady.
a lot. Wow, that just happened.
Anyways,
Sorry. It went there.
the ladies lived on this farm property. Oh my gosh, guys. That's their last name. They are the ladies.
I don't know how much I can keep of this. So I'm gonna keep it all.
The ladies lived on their farm property, which was about 146 acres.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's actually comparative to the Shriver farm.
The lady
the White
house,
Girl farm.
but let me tell you, the lady house was not all that. In July 1863, of course, this was Gettysburg.
Yes.
And in typical American fashion, General Johnson of the Confederates, Mr. Edward Allegheny Johnson,
Laura's
When-
still laughing in the corner.
I'm sorry, I was just thinking
Came
about
to
a
the-
general lady.
came to the lady house.
What is happening
And in general American fashion was like, I want your property. And decided to confiscate it.
He wanted the
For
lady
the-
property.
For the
Get out of here,
Confederates.
ladies.
Yeah.
This
There
is
was-
a man farm now.
So there was, as a result, there was a lady exodus
Well,
Of course.
because the ladies had to go.
yeah.
Yep. Now it's just a dead person's farm, I'm guessing.
There's no room for the ladies. There's
No.
no ladies' room.
Unless they're willing to be nurses, Ray. No ladies' room. Oof. Ooh, Ray.
Oh man,
No ladies' room.
this is a rough start.
That's the best start. It's the best. I'm loving this.
And they used the location, General Ewell, Isaac Ewell, and General Johnson as the strategy space, so to speak, for Culp's Hill.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yes. So obviously that means, and I did a little Google search, it was not far from the Lady House, Culp's Hill. So it made sense to do this strategy stuff there.
Now, is the house okay? Oh, no.
I mean, it's still there.
Oh, okay.
And actually, if you take a look at the pictures, it is magnificent. It's a beautiful stone home. It has a barn. The first floor of the barn was actually used as a Confederate hospital, as was, the vast majority of the
Everything.
house. But the reason why it was used as a hospital for the Confederate soldiers had to do with the result of Culp's Hill, the Battle of Culp's Hill. Now, this happened in the afternoon, and this was one of the few times that the Union soldiers, actually, I think this was the only time that the Union soldiers were vastly outnumbered. It was like a ratio of 3.5 to 1
Ouch.
by the Confederate soldiers, right? So they vastly outnumbered them. But here's the thing, all right? The Confederate soldiers, because it's Culp's Hill, so spoiler alert, there's a hill.
Whoa,
What?
whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
I'm not good at geography, but that makes sense.
Yeah. And the Confederates were fighting uphill.
Oh.
The Union soldiers were fighting downhill, so they had geographically the upper hand,
advantage, yeah.
the advantage as a result.
Always want the high ground.
And this was one of the reasons why the Lady Farm was used as a Confederate hospital.
A lot of people died, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people died. Now, there are a couple of things to take into consideration as a Confederate hospital. You know what? So, they didn't actually have thread, fun fact, for stitching.
Interesting fact.
Yes.
I know what they used.
Oh, okay. Mrs. Hayden?
Can we call Mrs. Hayden?
Yes, go ahead.
Did they use horsehair?
Yes, they did.
I knew it.
Yes. Also known for any music freaks out there, for bows on string instruments. Horsehair is also used.
And I remember part of that's called a frog. See, I remember some of my words.
But you know what? They actually, so they had to boil the horsehair. If you've ever, I'm not around horses a lot, but apparently it's very stiff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And boiling it makes it a little more pliant. Anywho, but it was like a secondary factor that they were also disinfecting the horsehair in the boiling process. So, as a result, a lot of the Confederate soldiers actually were less prone to infection just as a result of this process.
Does that make you feel more clean, Ray?
It does.
You're welcome.
Actually. But then I think about what went on in the lady farmhouse, and it makes me feel a little less clean. To this day, folks, you can still see blood splatters on the floor.
Yum.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think that the ladies would have cleaned that up when they got back.
You would... I don't know. That's a better question for the ladies.
I didn't mean that like as a sexist comment. Like male or female ladies could have cleaned
You
that
know
up.
what? Let me tell
Mr.
you
or
though,
Mrs.
Yeah.
they came back to a shocking situation. Once they were allowed back in, they actually found a dead Confederate soldier
Yeah.
their house?
upstairs. So,
But
can you imagine
was he
coming back
forgotten?
to that? I don't know if he was forgotten.
This bed's
I mean-
too hard. This bed is too soft.
This bed has a body in it.
I don't remember that in my
I
child
would rather
story.
I would rather come home to three, or have a three bear situation.
Yeah, right.
Because it came upstairs, or it happened upstairs. Actually, they consider that to be the most haunted area of the house. That being said, there have been instances where they've seen Confederate soldiers on the grounds, just walking as if they're still patrolling. There are rumors of Confederate soldiers in the house with General Ewell, just kind of haunting the place, still a little perturbed. Because if you think about it, just by numbers alone, this should have been an easy battle to win. But I reckon the Union soldiers anticipated the attack and beat them to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened at Little Round Top too. The Union just
Yeah.
got there first.
There are other stories with regard to the grounds, the ghost of a Civil War soldier. Visitors, this is more for Culp's Hill, have reported seeing the ghost of a Civil War soldier walking among the trees and then just vanishing into thin air. Sound of drums can be heard as well. Yeah. The ghost of a nurse, which would make sense actually if you think about
Yeah.
it, considering that it was, a Confederate hospital.
Yeah.
Strange lights and orbs. I feel that's kind of standard at this point.
Yeah, that's a whole
To like the whole
area.
Gettysburg experience.
All one big orb.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. Funnily enough, you really kind of had to dig deep to find ghost stories, I feel, related to the lady house, the lady farm.
Well, this brought us enjoyment in a very different way.
But now, to go back to your comment, you said they were boiling the horsehair. Was the beginning then of being like appropriate, like with our medical care, right? We started boiling things
It was
in
the
general.
advent of methodologies and procedures to sanitize. Yeah.
Because, and I think you said it, but I just want to kind of reiterate for our listeners, when the horsehair being boiled, like they still have the copper pots, like by the fireplaces there to showcase that they kept the water boiling all the time.
All the time, yes, yes.
And so everything was boiled, and because of that, the Confederates had way less people die from, sepsis.
From sepsis. And it's kind of secondary, but fun fact, you can actually still see like the burn marks from where they boil the water. It's actually quite the whole situation, like the whole arrangement, how they've set up the lady farmhouse. So the dining room table was used for operations. Actually, it was more like they would just take like the doors off and then just lay them down. They would put hay down. I actually don't know if they still do that. That would bother me though if I went into like the exhibit and there was like hay on the floor. I would feel compelled to like clean it up. But that was a thing.
We need a broom in here.
No, but that was a thing. In order for folks to not like slip, I'm talking about like the doctors.
Yeah.
They would put the hay down. They would do the operations because
soak
this
up
is
the
of
blood.
Soak
course
the blood, yeah.
yes. Because it would get slick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny to think about that, but yeah. Blood is
Imagine you
slick.
drop your sawbone and gets covered in hay and blood and muck.
I don't know how.
Oh,
clean
sorry. I
that
was just
hay is.
imagining.
Yeah. Oof.
It's crazy to think amputations could take up to 15 minutes back in the day.
As at most, usually. The best could go faster.
That is a great relief.
Hey, the ether only lasted so long, probably.
Oh boy. That turned dark. But it's kind of cool though, like, think about like this, when the Union soldiers saw us after, they went, oh, that's why they're not getting sick like us, So I think it's, if one good thing came out of the Lady Farm, apart from their terrible last name, it is that the advent of actual, watching for bacteria in medical work. So
Yeah.
That's really neat.
And I think it's set up just like, what was the place that you discussed where they have it set up and it's not haunted at all?
The Shriver House.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes me think about that because they have it set up just like that. It's set up, they have don't they have like fake dead bodies laid out? Wrapped up?
Up on the porch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's funny because back in the day, well, it's not funny. Why do I keep saying that?
Get
Nothing
better
about this is funny.
adjectives.
Yes, we had our funny moments earlier in my segment.
We had this conversation last week, too.
Yep.
Yes.
We need better
About things
adjectives.
being funny.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they would tend to perform surgeries in front of windows. A, for the light. B, when you needed to toss an arm,
Yep.
Yeah.
give a hand,
Oh no, Ray. No.
Lend a hand.
lend a hand.
He took
was
break a
easy.
leg to a whole new level.
I did.
Eh.
Oh boy. Anyway.
Even the bird never seemed so real.
Oh my
Gosh.
goodness.
So yeah, that's a little bit about the Lady Farm,
This is
guys.
cool.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
The name, I'm sorry. I don't know, Daniel Lady. I just thought it was a lady, maybe she was married to. I don't know what I was thinking.
That was
but what an unfortunate last name.
I mean, it makes sense. It was the Shriver House and the Spangler Farm, and so the Lady
Listen,
Farm.
but I
in
didn't
hindsight,
imagine anybody named Lady.
it
No,
makes
no,
sense.
Daniel Lady. He was a lady man.
Lady man.
Yes.
Not a
Yeah.
ladies man. A lady man.
Well, I don't know. I mean, 7 children later.
He's the man of the Lady House.
I'm gonna break Shanna again.
I just imagine what are they called? Those traveling salesmen. Knock, knock, knock. Hello, may I speak to the lady of the house? Yes. And everyone's hello. Oh my goodness. I meant the lady. Yes. How confusing would that be?
We're all ladies
We're
here.
all ladies.
They were all ladies there.
The Lady Farm. We farm ladies here. Nope.
Although, I mean, even
Do we
here,
plow ladies?
Go check on Matilda. Is she done yet?
I mean, think about that must have been. Even in the 19th century, that had to have been kind of funny.
Oh, I feel bad for the poor children who have to go to school and their last name is Lady. Oh, they must have been bullied.
Well, what if they're at
As
the
we're
front
laughing
what if
about
they're at the What if they're at the front of the line or something like that? And it's okay, ladies first. I mean,
Sergeant Lady's gonna be so pissed, guys.
he's a real hard ass.
I mean, no matter what profession they go into, if they're in the army,
No,
it's a
yeah.
general lady.
It's
Major
it's
lady.
lose all the way around.
Lieutenant
Major
lady. Agent lady.
I just realized, if you're a doctor and you have a waiting room, you can say, there's a lady in waiting.
Oh.
Yeah. Now we're going down the rabbit hole.
We could go on this for a while.
We could. Anyway, PJ, what are you discussing tonight?
The Spangler Farm. There are a million Spangler farms, by the way. So finding the right Spangler farm.
It was like having the Weichert farm for me. There are lots of Weichert farms.
Gosh. Apparently they're all connected though or something, because there's also Spangler Meadow and Spangler
Sure,
Spring.
they're all related. Literally.
Yeah, Spangler Spring. They all have their own little thing going on. So Spangler Farm, if you go there right now, the driveway that leads up to the farm is original. It's the actual driveway and everything that's there. Everything is painstakingly reconstructed or the same.
Wow.
The key thing you'll notice is this bright red, gigantic barn. And it was a 2-story barn, which is really cool. I'll get to that in a minute. But
That's
first,
actually pretty common.
yeah. No, but the way they set it up, I mean,
yeah.
is really cool. So, for 5 weeks and 2 days, this place was used as a hospital.
What?
Wow.
Good lord.
So, it housed 1,900 soldiers
That's a lot.
Both sides or one side?
Both. Only 50 Confederate soldiers. Though.
Oh.
And they were tossed in the wagon shed.
Of course they were. Wow, okay.
And I have, actually, I'm going to skip 2. So there's one quote from a guy, and he said, I was laid on the threshing floor of the barn used for a hospital near the big door. There I had a fine view of the bursting shells coming from this direction during Pickett's charge. Because literally, like, there, if you look from the barn, straight away from the barn, there's a tree line. Right behind it is a field, and that field is where the artillery was.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Wow.
So then he said there were soldiers like stacked wall to wall in this barn. And he's like, then I was later moved down to the wagon shed where all the Confederates were. But so anyways, why this place was picked, there's a really cool virtual tour on YouTube from National Museum of Civil War Medicine by Dr. Carol Reardon. And she leads you through like the whole barn, you know, and everything. And she said that there were 4 big reasons why they wanted the farm. And this is actually before the battle really got going, because by day 2, the battle was like around the farm, and they're like, they never would have picked this place for a hospital had they been there July 2nd. But they got there July 1st, and they saw all the bonuses that this farm came with. So, 1, they needed a spot away from the fighting. This is far in the south, like below Gettysburg, near Cemetery Hill. Well, behind Cemetery Hill. So, they had that. They had cover. Cemetery Hill. They had the barn itself, which is 72 by 45 feet.
Wow.
They
were rolling in money, I guess.
Yeah.
They had fresh water. Rock Creek was nearby. They had 2 wells on the property and 2 streams on the property. And they had road access, which is very necessary for getting their wagon trains, especially ambulances, to railroads to get people out of there. So those 4 things like were the big factors. They had Culp Hill to the northeast. They had Cemetery Hill just north of them as well. They had hills all over. So they were very close to like all the action. They could get to wherever they needed to go very quickly or get to the hospital very quickly. It was in charge. It was run by Dr. Thomas Armstrong, who was the chief surgeon. They just used the term operator.
Yep,
for
that's
most
the
of it.
term. Yeah, if you're in charge.
Yep. He had 2 main deputies who I couldn't find the names of, but the first one, his job was to arrange the tents in the fields around the barn. Also find a good location for the kitchen and the latrine.
Well, away from the water.
Yeah.
A lot of people would get healthy, then only drink nasty water and then get sick and die.
Yeah. Then Deputy 2. You're welcome.
Sorry, Ray. Drinking poop water.
Deputy 2 had a much better job. Admin. Taking names. Keeping an eye on the status.
Paperwork.
If they're alive, if they're dead, if they left, if they're still here. All that.
I could do that job.
Yeah, was he better at making sure they were dead than the story from Laura last week? Oh.
They had very good records, actually.
Good.
Very good records. That's how we know that there were, about, like, again, they weren't perfect records, but about 50 Confederate soldiers.
Yeah.
Out of 1,900. That's pretty good
We
records.
put them in the shed.
So, there was one particular nurse who was named in this video, Marilla Hovey. And, she, well, pronounced Hovey, though, but spelled Hovey. She's like remembered because if soldiers wanted to send letters home but they were wounded, she would write them. Like they could dictate and she would write them for them.
Aw, Marilla.
Yeah.
Anne of Green Gables. Marillas are always good.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So now the neat part about the barn.
Neat.
Neat.
Is it really neat?
So you, like typical barns in our area, there is like an embankment that leads up to the main doors, right? There's like a little hill leading up to it. And so the doors open up, and you see this huge barn, really big, wide floorboards, and there are gaps in between them because it's a barn. And,
What?
yeah. And this was the So triage was outside. They decided what severity you were, where you needed to go from there, if you were going to a tent, if you're going inside the barn, things like that. If it was pretty severe, you went into the barn, and from there you just waited on a bench or something inside that barn. But because there are gaps in the floorboards, your blood was dripping down to the people who were where you were going next, which is the people waiting to get surgery. So they were the more severe ones underneath. And so
The basement area was getting dripped on by the ground floor. Got
yeah.
it.
Ew.
Okay.
So not sanitary.
No.
Oh, I'm
No horsehair boiling in water.
no. Cringing.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the lady farm.
Yeah, I'm officially cringing here.
So,
No, that's what's cool about it, because I'm confused.
well, the neat thing is that, like, they had this setup of you here, and then we're going to move you down underneath, and then we're going to move you outside.
Very organized.
Yeah.
So, were there any male ladies? Because the lady would be in waiting then.
That's true. I mean, maybe.
Maybe.
There very well
Maybe.
could have been a couple ladies in waiting.
Could have been a couple ladies in waiting. You're right. You're right. You're
So,
welcome.
when they were brought outside, all the operations were done outside. One, because there's the 7-foot eaves that came out from under the barn. So they had this sheltered area where they could work, A, away from the smell, B, away from feces and all that garbage, C, they were just, they had a spot where they could just throw limbs.
Well, then there's like natural light too.
Right.
And natural light. That was the other thing. So people would wait inside the barn on the bottom floor and then just come out either to a workbench or a bed or whatever the heck they had for, operating and get it done.
Could you mention laying on a bench to get your leg cut off?
No.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know. So the reason why they treated Confederates there too, because, they're, quote, the enemy, for people in Gettysburg. Jonathan Letterman's memoir states that, quote, a wounded and prostrate foe is no longer an enemy. And so that's why they kind of kept her. Took care of Confederates along with Union.
It's the humane thing to do too.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe your enemy.
But I mean, some people, I don't know, in the
well,
world...
we put him in the shed.
In the world wars, we just put them down, If there's someone that was still wounded on the battlefield, a lot of times you just put them down, you ended their suffering right there instead of helping them.
That's true.
So yeah, this was definitely I guess it helps that it's Americans with Americans, so you do show more sympathy for them than someone that's foreign and doesn't speak your language and things like that. Moving on though to something neater. Ambulances.
Is it neat?
Ambulances. So they start off as 2-wheel carts drawn behind horses.
Were they a quicker picker-upper? As
I mean,
reference to our
they-
danger and dice.
They do get quicker as they advance throughout the war. Because early in the war, they're just 2-wheel carts attached to horses, and it was the carts you see in movies and everything where they there's no shock system or anything, no shocks.
That's-
Every bump you're bouncing.
Yes.
But by the time of Gettysburg, the 11th Corps, who ran the hospital, they had an ambulance train of 100 ambulances.
Well,
There were 4-wheel carriages with shocks, and also a hanging system where you could put multiple stretchers in at one time at various layers.
Wow.
Yeah,
Apart from the drippage to the next person.
I know, right? But
Were they cleaning those in between? Nope.
no,
But you gotta give him props for space
I know,
efficiency.
I
yeah,
know.
and for just getting somewhere quickly,
I give them props,
Yeah.
but
lots of people quickly. You get them moving.
Maybe not comfortably, but
yeah.
One thing I'll add too about when you were talking about the equal treatment for Confederate and Union soldiers. So Dorothea Dix was sort of in charge for the most part of nurses, the Union nurses, and she was they I guess called her Dragon Dix because because she was like a
Lady
stickler.
farm, we got
my
dragon
word.
dicks. So what is going on
I
right
know.
now?
This is the best
Different kind of
podcast.
dragon.
If we're going to close it out, man, we are closing it out like this.
Oh boy.
Not even on purpose.
Oh boy. But yeah, she was a very, very strict enforcer for equal treatment for Confederate or Union soldiers. And if you were shown to like have partiality toward one, she would get rid of you. Except at the very end when like there were no more nurses to be had. Then it was like anybody who's willing to mop up blood, you're a nurse. But yeah, then she later became a champion for mentally ill and went on to advocate for.
Well, we've discussed her a couple times.
We have, yeah. So anyway, I just thought that she was part of why there was equal treatment. So.
Wonderful. See, humanity.
Yep.
Indeed.
So speaking of treatment, a quote from William Southerton about the amputations. And this is nothing we haven't heard before.
Are you ready, Ray?
I'm going to brace myself.
So he said, quote, "At the doorway, I saw a huge stack of amputated arms and legs. A stack as high as my head."
Yum.
Yeah.
A people-sized stack.
Yeah.
Made of
Made of people.
Many, many people.
Oof.
Wow.
Did any
This
ladies
is the
lose
worst.
a limb?
This is the worst.
Because there are
one, though.
lady parts in that.
There's lady limbs.
There's lady parts. I'm having too much fun.
Oh boy.
This is the worst one, though.
I'm ready.
Private Henry Blakeman from 17th Connecticut says, quote, "I wore the same shirt that I was wounded in, all bloody, for 9 days, and half of that time it was full of maggots."
Oh. And the other half the time the maggots ate the shirt. And they turned into flies and flew away.
Yeah.
Because that's probably what would have happened.
Yeah.
They would have lived off of it and then...
Yeah.
Although, wouldn't that maybe be a good thing? Because they're doing all the dead
They'd
stuff.
be cleaning it out.
So, like...
but-
Yeah, but they're also like in there and
wiggling.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Okay.
Swipe left.
I actually got to the point now where I'm Ray. I don't like bugs. I hate bugs.
And maggots in particular make
They're
me
the
very
worst,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
I just...
No, so earlier today, Eli had to do a diorama. And he's like, well, here are the animals I need for Daddy to print out at school. And so he makes me look up snakes. And we all know that I don't love snakes. He's like, how about a king cobra? They don't live in this rainforest, honey bun. How about anacondas? I'm like, okay, listen. Like, because those movies, I don't care how cringy, how junky they are. Like, I don't like snakes. And my biggest fear is walking over a log that's actually a freaking snake. So I'm look at these pictures. I'm like, oh, God, they're moving.
How'd we go 2 weeks in a row mentioning anacondas, by the way? In
discussed
Liminal Unlimited, we talk about it.
Oh, right.
True. PJ, I think you should put your arm around her very slowly and snake it around.
I'd actually find
Yeah.
it very comforting.
Just keep squeezing tight.
And then I had to cut 2 different snakes out for him to glue into his diorama. And I'm like, so I'm trying to. I hate snakes.
See, I kind of like pythons. They just give you hugs.
See, whenever I like,
Extreme hugs.
whenever I
Extreme
hear
hugs.
about constrictors and all those snakes, like, I don't know why, my mind goes back to this little comic strip. It's one panel, from something Dad showed us, way back, and it's a snake wrapped around a mouse, and the mouse is like all stiff and freaking out, and the snake just says, "You seem tense." And
Oh, wow.
That's a good one. I was going to tell a funny side story, but now I forget what it was because that just threw me off.
you're welcome.
Oh, remember, pythons. So when I think of the word python, I think of when we took the kids to a reptile land because Alex was enamored by the big, python they have there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the python that's there, right? The green one?
Yeah, they have some pythons. They have anacondas too.
I'm pretty sure it's the python. Remember, because he's like pointing out the window, this glass window, and this python is getting closer and closer to
yeah.
him. And he thinks that he's like made a friend. I'm like, honey, if that glass was in there, you'd be dead right now. It is looking at you, wanting to eat you right now.
You know, instead of a birthday kitten, he could get a birthday snake.
A
Me and
snake.
Eli? No, Alex is only 3.
Just saying. It's an option.
No, it's not.
It's an option.
No, because the last time I listened to your family, Sophie got a bunny.
Not a brainless hamster or whatever.
That could be dead by now. Wouldn't that be nice? I just bought another box of hay up there. You see that box of hay? Yeah. Donnie's living his best life.
He's going to be a surgeon.
On the upside, if you need any emergency surgery, you've already got the hay ready to roll.
I do. Hey, worst case scenario, he doesn't lay eggs. We'll just eat him.
Oh,
No
see?
more chicken for us. No more bunny.
Yep.
We're gonna have rabbits too.
So
Anyway.
the Spanglers.
Yeah, the Spanglers.
There's George and Elizabeth, and then they had 4 kids.
That's
so
it?
6 of them
Okay.
altogether. You say that's it, but they, for that 5 weeks, 2-day stretch, they lived in one room.
That's usually what
One
happens.
bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
They were allowed to stay on the property, which usually they got kicked out. But they were allowed to stay on the property, but they had to stay in that room.
Although, to be honest, like, depending on the age of your kids, too, you'd want to keep them close.
Yeah.
And honestly, a hospital, like, since they decided to go a little further away from the front lines, it's actually pretty safe where they were. Because usually the hospitals are, like, right there at the front lines, and they're not safe to be at.
Yeah.
You know, the stories of the doctors who were getting shot and killed.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, you know what? It's going to smell. I'm going to hear people crying in pain. All right, I'll stay.
That's the thing is one of their neighbors, same thing happened to their farm. They abandoned the farm. It smelled that bad that they
Sure.
just never went back.
Oh, wow.
Not
Yeah.
ever. Wow.
No,
Ew.
never. They abandoned it.
In a year, it would, you'd have bones,
Clear out.
but it wouldn't be horrible
Yeah.
Yeah.
smelling.
But they stayed. They said like the smell, like the chamber pot was awful, and like they stank, and everything was terrible, and it was just.
They couldn't even empty their chamber pot?
Well, I mean, I guess they could, but they couldn't like wash it anywhere. I guess because all the wells were taken by the soldiers. You could dump it out, but then what?
Even then, ugh, just
You
the whole
know?
thing.
See, that bothers me because, like, this is the Union taking over a Union
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
Wouldn't you be nice and accommodating?
Yeah.
Huh.
So
Poor Spanglers.
But when you think, what did you say? Like 1,900 people were there, right? Like that's a
1,900.
lot
a
of.
lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
But we have other stories where people were, actually like baking bread and taking care of people. And, your story, General Lee, when he had his headquarters, she was taking care of him too. She was in the basement, sure. But, like, at least she was able to move around.
It's true. And then all the soldiers were stealing her stuff.
Yeah.
And so it could well be that the family was just trying to hide out from the
And
soldiers.
those were Confederates, though.
Yeah, yeah.
This is Union on Union property.
It's true, but that doesn't mean there's not still.
Idiots.
Yeah.
Terrible people.
Exactly.
Inhumane people.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Fine. I feel bad for the Spanglers
Doesn't
now.
mean they're all heroes.
Yep. What else you got for a stud?
So, the Spanglers at the end of it, they filed for 3 damage claims totaling about $5,000. They received 90 and 6 tons of hay.
Well, Jenny Wade got a full pension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still
Yes,
sore
but I
about
would
that
really
Weigert farm.
I still say I would love to have met her mom.
I
Yes.
know,
yes.
right?
She took care of
And
it.
I very well might, because I think she haunts the house, doesn't
Oh.
she?
It's true.
According to that EVP.
Look at that barn, though.
That is a cool barn.
So
Oh,
there's
yeah,
the-
there's the E.
Yeah, there we go.
You have to share that picture.
Yeah.
We always say we're going to share pictures, and we never share them on Facebook.
I know.
We got to just
I do
a
have
photo drop.
I have your ghost ones. I'm going to post them today after we record this. Though.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah, huge barn though.
That is huge.
Massive.
I wouldn't abandon that
Yeah.
place. I'd hang out and wait for it.
Yeah. So, in terms of ghostly things, it's very common to hear moaning, people crying out for help and things like that. What's like, to quote this from the Pennsylvania Rambler, one guy's there interviewing like a local, and he says, there are the normal ghost sightings, and he's like, normal?
I mean, even us, we're all at the point where we're like, oh yeah, there's orbs, there's
Yeah.
crying,
Yep.
sounds of battle, all the usual stuff.
Yep, and so that's what he says. He says, well, as normal as you can expect with ghost stories, people claim to see both Union and Confederate soldiers. People say they've heard the sound of gunfire. Gunfire isn't the only thing they hear. People have heard mysterious voices, especially one of a female.
Okay.
More
Would you
recently...
say it's a voice of a lady?
Yes.
Visiting perhaps the Spangler farm.
A Daniel lady?
But more recently, there's been talk of a woman in white. And she's seen like all around the Spangler area. But the main thing is she haunts the Spangler Spring. And the Spangler Spring is spring. And
Wow.
yeah.
probably trying to empty that chamber pot.
Just need to clean this.
The night of July 2nd, I believe it was, Union and Confederate soldiers met at the spring to, like, share drinks and, like, just drink, you know, have some water. And, like, had a little truce moment there. And then went back to their sides and started the fighting again the next day. Yeah, so he says, exactly who she was when she was alive is not known, even if she existed at all. Word of mouth states she committed suicide here after her fiancé broke off the engagement. I have not been able to find any definite proof that somebody actually committed suicide here. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I have not been able to verify the events. But all these stories seem to happen at dusk or at night. And let me tell you about one I recently heard, this guy Randy says. The story Randy had been told was, a couple doing the battlefield tour on bicycle had arrived at the spring to see a young lady dressed in a white gown standing near it. They stopped to take a picture of the spring and turned their attention away from the woman for a moment. Not a monument. When they looked back, she was gone. I've tried to debunk it, but really there's no place for a person to hide in the immediate area of the spring. For a living person to get to a good hiding place, well, nobody can run that fast if they're distracted for a moment. And the author says, I had to agree. There were no good hiding places near the spring itself. The nearest place was roughly 50 yards away, and if it was an actual person, then she would have had to sprint past the couple to get to it.
This is Skinwalker Ranch stuff.
Yeah,
right there.
right.
Yeah.
I knew it. We have our own Skinwalker Ranch.
So, here's a picture of the spring.
That's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this little arch area
very
there.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest, you know, ghost sighting that's been happening there. Is this woman,
in white.
this lady in white. And that's a common motif in ghosts in general, you know, just the lady in white. That first episode of Supernatural even runs with it, you know.
The lady in the water.
No, that's Arthur.
That's true.
But anyways, that's the Spangler Farm.
Well, thank you. That was wonderful and informative. And now it is time for Kyle's creepy thought.
I thought it would be a good idea if we turned Shannon into the girl. I thought it would be a good idea if we. I thought it would be a good idea. I thought it would be a good idea if we turned Shannon into the girl from Ringu. This is bad. This is really bad.
It's like a bouquet of fine wine. It just gets better
Every time.
every time.
So, I decided to try and take Ray up on his little challenge from the last episode, where he questioned if there were places that seemed to draw battle or conflict or wars over and over and over again. And to be honest, I really couldn't. I thought about it because I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I really couldn't find places in history where that was clearly documented. You know, we know that buildings or locations seem to draw maybe negativity, maybe dark presences, things like that. But I couldn't find anything about wars or battles or conflicts. But what it did bring to mind, like right away, was maybe places or, well, I should say, maybe battle or conflict or war draw people. And it brought to mind General George S. Patton. General Patton, he believed that he had been reincarnated many times throughout history to fight and die again and again and again. He claimed to have visions and dreams that would show him moments from these previous lives, always in the midst of battle or in its immediate aftermath. For example, he remembered being a Greek hoplite fighting the Persians in the siege of Tyre under Alexander the Great. He said he remembered wielding a Roman gladius against the Parthians in the 1st century BC. He was gravely wounded and then died when he took 3 arrows to the neck. He said he fought twice in the 100 Years' War, first for the French, than for the English. Patton said he could recall the feel of the rope around his neck as he hanged as a privateer. And as a youth, Patton was kicked by a horse. The horse broke his leg in 3 places, and a young Patton almost died from the injury. While he was laying there, after being kicked with his leg broken, he said he had a vision that he was a Viking raider lying wounded and dying on a battlefield. In his vision, a spectral figure appeared to him. It was a Valkyrie. She was offering to take him to Valhalla. Patton wrote a poem that amazingly sums up. I decided to take a page from the Well House Exorcism, and you guys love to recite quotes and from sources in history. Well, Patton wrote a poem. The poem is called Through a Glass Darkly. I'll read it now. Through the travail of ages, midst the pomp and toil of war, I have fought and strove and perished countless times upon this star. In the form of many people, in all panoplies of time, have I seen the luring vision of the victory made sublime. I have battled for fresh mammoth. I have warred for pastures new. I have listened to the whispers when the race-trek instinct grew. I have known the call to battle in each changeless, changing shape, from the high-souled voice of conscience to the beastly lust for rape. I have sinned, and I have suffered, played the hero and the knave, fought for belly, shame, or country, and for each have found a grave. I cannot name my battles, for the visions are not clear, yet I see the twisted faces and I feel the rending spear. Perhaps I stabbed our Savior in his sacred helpless side, yet I've called his name in blessing when in aftertimes I died. In the dimness of the shadows where we hairy heathens warred, I can taste in thought the lifeblood we used teeth before the sword. While in later, clearer vision I can sense the coppery sweat, feel the pikes grow wet and slippery when our phalanx Cyrus met. Hear the rattle of the harness where the Persian darts bounced clear, see their chariots wheel in panic from the hoplites' leveled spear. See the goal grow monthly longer, reaching for the walls of Tyre, hear the crash of tons of granite, smell the quenchless eastern fire. Still more clearly as a Roman can I see the legion close, as our third rank moved in forward, and the short sword found our foes. Once again I feel the anguish of that blistering treeless plain, where the Parthians showered death bolts, and our discipline was in vain. I remember all the suffering of those arrows in my neck, yet I stabbed a grinning savage as I died upon my back. Once again I smell the heat sparks when my Flemish plate gave way, and the lance ripped through my entrails as on Cressy's field I lay. In the windless, blinding stillness of the glittering tropic sea, I can see the bubbles rising where we set the captives free. Midst the spume of half a tempest I have heard the bulwarks go, when the crashing point-blank round shot sent destruction to our foe. I have fought with gun and cutlass on the red and slippery deck, with all hell aflame within me and a rope around my neck. And still later as a general have I galloped with Marat, when we laughed at death and numbers, trusting in the Emperor's star. Till at last our star faded, and we shouted to our doom where the sunken road of Ohain closed us in its quivering gloom. So but now with tanks a-clatter have I waddled on the foe, belching death at 20 paces by the star-shell's ghastly glow. So as through a glass and darkly the age-long strife I see, where I fought in many guises, many names, but always me. And I see not in my blindness what the objects were I wrought, but as God rules o'er our bickerings, it was through his will I fought. So forever in the future shall I battle as of yore, dying to be born a fighter, but to die again once more. before the 1943 invasion of Sicily, British General Harold Alexander told Patton, "You know, George, you would have made a great marshal for Napoleon if you had lived in the 19th century." Patton looked at him and replied, "But I did." So I think maybe, just maybe, throughout the ages, maybe people have been drawn to conflict as opposed to people being drawn to places for conflict. Maybe people are drawn to conflict, to fight, maybe to escalate the conflicts. Maybe it's something in their spirit that for whatever reason yearns for conflict and battle, and maybe they don't even quite understand why. And that's my creepy thought.
My first reaction is, that's a wonderful poem for a guy with a mental disability.
Did he have one?
No.
Oh.
But the fact that he so strongly believed in this, like, what an overactive imagination this man has.
I would say he has a
He's
delusions
had
of
a lot.
grandeur.
He's had a lot to draw from,
That's true.
like a lifetime, several lifetimes.
Maybe he was a lady too.
Oh, maybe he was.
Well,
I don't know. I didn't derive
Oh
that
my
from
gosh,
the reading
that
from the
means
poem.
if any ladies fought in the battle, that there were lady killers on the other side.
oh,
So, but
Wouldn't it be funny if they all survived though? Because then they would be lucky ladies.
oh boy,
no lady.
Oh, okay.
a lucky lady.
Well, I mean, if there are several ladies on the battlefield,
that's true.
A legion of ladies. It's beautiful.
yeah,
It's
the lady,
alliterative.
the Lady Legion.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, isn't it
Not
nice?
American lady. Yeah. Anywho, how do you feel about Kyle's creepy thought?
I think it's pretty neat, like, because we always talk about how, like, memories might be stored in genetics and things like that. Because I don't know if you two have heard the theory, like, you know, if a butterfly only lives, like, so many days or, like, a week or whatever, but the trip down to Mexico is over, you know, like, months,
Right.
then that means it's several generations of butterflies to get down there. So how do they know where to go? You know, and
Right.
so, and a lot of people, and they always go to the same place every year. And a lot of people believe that, like, memory is passed down genetically.
Well, even in Frozen 2, and it's actually been proven by science, water does retain memory as well.
Yeah.
Like, water has memory. So when Olaf is talking about that, he's not lying. It's true.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, atoms, like they say, like, you know, science as we understand it now, like there's a set amount of atoms here on the Earth, and that doesn't really change.
Yeah.
Right,
The-
yeah.
the-
Matter cannot be destroyed, only transformed.
Exactly. And so if that's the case, then we're all made out of other
the same
people
stuff,
and
yeah.
other things, and, you know, for millennia.
Well, that's why there's a joke, too, is like, so whose water are you drinking? Like, where'd it come from? Well, because at some point it's someone's pee or something that you're drinking.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But, actually, the Assassin's Creed games, that's actually based off of science.
Yeah, they took that genetic memory idea and turned it into a game.
And it's been proven too that, you know, you may not have any PTSD. Maybe you've had a pretty normal life, right? But then one day, inexplicably, you are terrified of going into an elevator. Something triggered and turned on a genetic memory that's been there since your great grandpa or whatever, when they were maybe, like, you know, locked in a closet, and they had that moment of trauma, and so now it is turned on for you. So you can actually trigger these memories that aren't yours,
Yeah,
but they're
I-
genetically yours.
I learned about that from actually the HBO Watchmen series, because they talk about genetic trauma. And so I researched it, and, like, children of vets who fought in the Vietnam War, they were significantly more prone to suicide.
Wow.
Well, and
Like-
it's true for children of Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
You know, have very, like, and part of it may be environment too, you know, like they're
Yeah,
there's
because
something to be
their
said about
parents
that,
might
yeah.
be raising them
Who knows what
differently
it's
or
like
whatever,
to be
yeah.
raised by parents who experience something like, you know, or
Something,
or where that's,
something
because
unexplainable
then it
like
becomes
that.
almost part of that tragedy. Almost becomes part of your culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, and there is, it almost sounds like a stereotype, but they have studied, for example, with Black people, that they tend to be more afraid of dogs than, say, white people. And when you think about the history, that that Black people for centuries have been hunted by these dogs, including even more recently with the
Civil rights movement.
Civil rights movement, yeah. And so there's a lot of studies actually being done about exactly this genetic memory.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, if anyone comes to my house, my dog Rosie's adorable. She barks.
She'll just
but-
hide from you.
Yeah.
Well, and getting back to what Kyle was saying about Patton is, like his grandfather was a Confederate general. So
We reference
knows?
Patton.
yeah. So it's interesting, and
So maybe he wasn't reincarnated, but it is in his genetic memory.
could be.
That's what because I'm not sure I buy into the reincarnation belief, but I do oddly believe in genetic memory. I don't believe in collective consciousness either. I don't know how you all feel about that, but that's not something I'm...
Define it for me.
Where you can tap, like, everyone's minds are connected to this, like, large hive mind in the sky, like,
Have you
the
seen
cloud.
Avatar?
Okay.
No, like, it's just like this collective, like, it's how psychics are supposed, like, to people who don't believe in, like, a higher power, it's how they believe psychics work, is that
Like the Force?
everyone's
Kind of?
everyone's connected, and some people can tap into that connection, and so that information is shared with everyone, but only certain people can tap into it.
I'll sooner buy that. Well, I would buy sooner that some people are more emotionally intelligent than others, and then they can tap into that, and maybe that's mistaken as, that sort of connection. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I don't believe in
Yeah.
collective consciousness.
So anyways,
Plus, I don't like the idea that people can get into my mind.
yeah, right.
Get your tin hat out.
But anyways, what I was getting at was just that, like I believe that General Patton was experiencing something. I don't think it was past lives per se. I think it was genetic memory from either ancestors or if you're a collective consciousness person, he was tapping into these memories from the ether out there, and he was like just experiencing them from others who have lived it.
But I've never felt like I've been, like here in a manner of speaking before, or I've experienced
Never have I
something.
felt like that. Yeah.
I mean, there are times, and I think that's different from, say, like deja vu.
Yeah.
Which, frankly, I don't think I've experienced either.
Well, did I ever tell you my story about reincarnation? Like, so, not that I don't believe in it. Like, my grandmother always said, like, how are we to know what happens when we die? Because we haven't experienced that. Like, we're alive. And so not that she never did, like, she never promoted it, but she would say, maybe you do come back because you didn't get it right. And so that's kind of where she kind of landed in that whole situation. But I was in college and I was taking like French 2 or 3, I forget, with this really cool professor. And he was fantastic. But I was just sitting there one day and we were practicing our language. And he looks over and he goes, Shana, because he called me Shana all the time. I couldn't ever pronounce her name correctly. You remind me of this beautiful painting I once saw. And so he told me that I reminded him of a girl in a bar at the Folies Bergère. And I had never, ever seen this painting in my life. Because in Edouard Manet, like I knew the painter, but I didn't like look at his stuff, And so I look up this painting and it creeps me the heck out because I have so many dreams, or I had dreams of the exact same situation where I'm behind a bar and wearing this like a beautiful dark blue velvet coat, very Victorian-esque. But what's pissing me off is there's this bunch of flowers right here, like in my chest area, because it was like part of like to look, pretty or whatever. But they were itchy and I kept smacking them. And I'm trying to like serve drinks to people and I'm just filled with this like deep sense of ennui by the end of the night because I'm just so exhausted and cranky, and the flowers are obnoxious, and there's a bowl of oranges inexplicably for some stupid reason. But this is this dream that I kept having over and over again. And so when I looked it up online, I went, holy crap, it's me.
Doppelganger.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And so, like, again, like, PJ's found the picture, but, like, I remember this, like, to a T. And that's when I used to have bangs, so the very thick bangs in the front, because my hair was parted that way when I was in the classroom that day. And so it was just, when I saw that, I said to him, like, I've had dreams about this, and I'm actually kind of freaking out because I don't really believe in reincarnation. He's just like, you've never seen this painting before in your life? I'm like, I've never seen this painting before. Like, no. Never. Like, we would never have seen a picture of a bar in our very conservative school district. You know, even Madame Fiedler would not have shown us that because the school would yell at her. So I don't know. Like, I'm kind of like, I'm in the I don't know camp because that freaked me out.
Yet another picture to share on your Facebook page.
Oh, they can just Google bar at the Folie Bergère and I'll pop up.
But you'll have to spell
Or
that
if you're
for
like
them.
me, just type in Manet,
Manet.
Manet, and then bar, girl at the bar.
Yes.
There's a couple of girls at bars.
Not if you just type that in.
Okay.
If you type in Manet, girl at the bar.
Very beautiful painter,
Boom.
though.
You get
He
it.
was. He was great. A lot of his work is just phenomenal. Anywho, thank you, Kyle, for that thought. We're not sure we fall on it. I think we're kind of like we're in the camp of yes and no.
It's kind of
I believe that he believes, like, you know, that Patton believes, but I don't believe reincarnation. I believe it's something else. That's how I
I like it.
feel about it.
It's wishy-washy.
No, I just believe that the idea of genetic memory wasn't a
yeah.
thing then.
Yeah.
So they just call it reincarnation because that's all they knew it could have been, you know?
So
But
maybe
then why would he be able to say, like, oh, I fought in this war, in the 100-Year War, I fought on the French side and I fought on the English
Yeah.
side? Like, what
maybe
would
I
prompt
have
him
a
to say
genetic
that?
memory where I remember what my great-great-grandma did or whatever.
Or it's
in the
super
bar.
ridiculous narcissism.
It could be that too. Or maybe he's just crazy.
He's
maybe
just crazy with delusions of grandeur, like Shayna said.
Or maybe it's like in that movie, Defending Your Life, and some people choose to come back and some people don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if
he
you've
just-
ever ever seen that movie. It's an
maybe
interesting
he just
movie.
had some more
Never
fight in
heard of
him.
He had a lot of fight in him.
You should watch that one. It's an interesting film. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kyle.
Yes.
Interesting thought, as always. Beautifully done. Now, Lala, we go on to you, and you were discussing the Rose Farm. So I'm guessing Rose is their last name.
Yes.
A rose by any other name. Man, I'm just having, this is a night. This is a night. Take it away, Laura.
Can you imagine though, like if you were a rose, you'd be like Shanna Rose, and then you married
Mary
a
Rose
lady,
Rose.
like Shanna Rose Lady. If you got married.
What if your name was like Mary Rose? Mary Rose
Ooh.
Rose.
Oh yeah, Mary Rose
Mary
Rose.
Roseanne Rose.
Oh my gosh. Or Ambrose Rose. So many options.
Roseanne Rose.
So the farm was actually owned by George and Dorothy Rose, and it's about 2 miles south of Gettysburg on the eastern side of Emmitsburg Road. So the farmhouse itself dates back to 1811, and it was completed in 1824. The
So it
barn
wasn't that old then before.
No, it really
Yeah.
was pretty new. And there was a barn built in 1812. So George Rose was a butcher from Germantown, PA, and he bought the farm in 1858. So just 5 years or so
Yeah.
before the.
Oops.
Jeez.
But man, he spend a fortune on this thing, $8,000.
Ooh.
Was that like a prime real estate situation?
Oh, it was, I think, a really big farm. Oh, where is the? I'm sure that there's an acreage on here, but I think it was like 200 acres or something. So it was pretty big.
Yeah.
But interestingly, George and his family didn't actually move in until after the war, not till 1868. Now his brother and his wife and their kids lived there.
Oh.
Yeah. So George's brother John lived there with his wife Elizabeth and 7 children. And also living there, this is interesting to me, and I don't know if you all know the terms, was an older woman working as a, quote, domestic, and a younger woman who was, quote, the help. So I don't know if that would be like an indentured servant, would be a domestic.
No, if you were a help, you were hired on.
Hired help,
So-
but what's a domestic?
Somebody, your nanny, probably.
Yeah, like a governess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Also help too. So, but younger girls would be hired out. Like if their family was poor, they'd be hired out to work on farms.
That makes sense to me. Yes, PJ.
In today's money, $8,000 is $293,502.44.
44
Today's
cents.
money.
Wow.
That's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Well, and he was a butcher, so apparently that was some good money in that.
There
Yeah.
was actually good money.
Yeah.
I
There
guess
still
so.
is.
Sure, yeah.
So,
I
and
couldn't do it.
also living there was a middle-aged farmhand and a
So
14-year-old hired boy. So there was a pretty full house. Let's see here. So there was intense fighting happening all around the home. Interestingly, one of the Rose's sons, their oldest son, Charles Francis, had joined. I'm sorry. There was another family also living on the property, Francis Ogden, with his wife and 4 sons. And so they lived in a separate farmhouse. But their oldest son, Charles Francis Ogden, joined the 138th Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry. But of course, that infantry was not at Gettysburg, so he didn't get to see his
Oh
family.
my god.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I guess it was good. He was safer, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
So he was a few miles to the south, and he was taking care of supplies from Harper's Ferry to Washington. But it's just sort of of all the, one of the local boys wasn't even there to fight for his town, but whatever. So there was fighting all 3 days in that general area because Buford's cavalry actually fell back into that area on the
okay,
first
yeah.
day.
Oh, okay.
So it really was very central in location. But it was really the second day of battle that had some of the fiercest fighting because the farm includes Stony Hill and Rose's Woods, which we talked about last week.
Yep.
And actually the property included the wheat field.
Oh, geez.
So that was part of their property where over 6,000 men were killed or wounded just on the wheat field.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because that
I
alone,
still just can't imagine
that alone is a 20-acre field where over 20,000 men were engaged in brutal and often hand-to-hand combat.
I just want to say, yesterday we drove by a very small dead animal, and Shanna had the hardest time dealing with the
Did
smell.
not like the smell.
And that's nothing compared to 6,000 people.
I know. I said, I would not be okay in Gettysburg.
No. Yeah.
It was a stinky possum. That's all I gotta say.
Oh,
Whatever it was.
It wasn't a possum. It was, I don't know. It was possum-sized, but it was brown. I don't know. Like a groundhog. maybe.
groundhog, yeah. Either way, I think they kind of all smell the same. when
Yeah.
they get to this.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. It would turn my stomach too.
I opened the windows. I'm like, we need to hold the windows down because he drove over it and the smell got stuck in the
I
chassis.
didn't hit it. I
Yeah,
just
but-
had to go, straddle it.
So the smell gets
Right.
stuck in your chassis, and you kind of carry it for a little bit. Yeah. I was like, this window's
Because the air
open.
conditioner blew it in, and
Yeah, it was bad.
in the car.
I was gagging.
Well, on that note, I mean,
Oh,
ish.
no.
It's not too bad, actually. But the farm buildings here on the property were, as you might expect, hospitals. And this was primarily Confederate Field Hospital.
Oh.
Just must have happened to fall on that side, I guess. And it's
Lady style.
yeah, well, and but it's estimated that between 500 and 1,000 Confederate soldiers were buried on the property.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
And then exhumed later, right? For
it
the
doesn't
National Cemetery.
say that, but probably
they have
if
to.
they could find them, I would assume. Yeah, that's a big if, but if they found them, yes. So the property is now owned by the National Park Service, and it's only open to the public on very special occasions. So it's pretty limited that you
When,
can go.
for example?
It doesn't really say, but I'm sure if you go to their website, you'll see whatever the hours are.
Probably early
Yeah.
July.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah, I'm sure they have special tours and things like that. But I think that they have so much property that they just probably can't man
Well, it's so
it
hard
all.
to maintain it all, and then where do you get the funding for it?
Yeah, so but this is a little this is sad. But so very little information kind of follows the Rose families after the Battle of Gettysburg. So one of the sad things is that there are these records from a Dr. John O'Neill who showed that he visited the Rose farm on 4 different days in March 1870 to treat one of the Rose's daughters, for which he prescribed the treatment of a straitjacket. So, I mean, but like that's something like we think of Jenny Wade as being like the only like civilian casualty, like death casualty, but like there were other casualties. Like
Oh, for
probably
sure.
this girl saw some stuff that like addled her brain,
Yeah.
like, and I don't think I mean, I hope she recovered, but based on this, like if you like years later in 1870, you're still being put in a straitjacket. That's just awful. So, but the Rose Farm was mired in debt and mortgage agreements, especially after the Civil War. And this is interesting. So even though he paid $8,000 for it, he was trying to sell it in 1866, couldn't find a buyer. And this goes on and on. Like there's all these back and forths where he's trying to sell it, and eventually sells it for $4,000.
Oh my gosh.
Then has to eat the rest of that debt and keep paying on it.
Yeah.
That
But
is unfortunate.
I know, but it kind of makes you wonder too, like, was it just life circumstances? Were there other things happening on the farm? Was it just that there were like 1,000 dead people buried there and he didn't want to live there anymore?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's a shame. So, but in terms of ghosty things, the ghost of Confederate General Armistead, who we heard from earlier. It was a Confederate general who was mortally wounded during the Battle of Gettysburg. He was taken to the Rose Farm to be treated for his injuries, but he died 2 days later. Visitors to the farm have reported seeing his ghostly apparition wandering the grounds, still dressed in his Confederate uniform. Let's see here. There have been the sound of horses like galloping on the property, although there's no horses there. So probably
That residual.
yep. Several ghosts of soldiers, Confederate, and occasionally Union, but Confederate, as it was a Confederate hospital. That's the main one. Of course, lights and orbs, lots and lots of that. And the sounds of battle. People will often hear that. They'll have sounds of gunfire, cannon fire, the screams of wounded soldiers, marching feet, clanking equipment, and the ghost of a young drummer boy. And they say that there have been reports of a drummer boy who was believed to have been killed in Rose's Woods during the battle. So they'll hear the sound of a drum beating, and some have seen his ghostly apparition wandering through the trees.
Poor kiddo.
I know.
That makes me sad now.
I know. So that is Rose's property, farm, and a little bit of the woods.
Makes sense though with the wheat field right there.
Yeah. It was. I didn't realize it was like part of their property.
Yeah,
So
wow.
yeah.
Oof. All right. Well, in that case, let's work our way out of Gettysburg. You know what I'm saying? Let's get out of town. And the only way to do that is over Sach's covered bridge. All right. Now, to get us into it, I actually am hopping on to astonishinglegends.com and taking some of their stuff here because I want it to feel a little creepy.
Nice.
All right. In folklore, bridges often served as important points in stories where devils make deals, where trolls live, and especially where ghosts lurk. Is it because we come so close to being washed away should a wood plank give out or our cars fail on top? Is it because of the imp of the impure calls us to the edge and asks what would happen if we jumped? Water is also believed to be an important aspect of the paranormal and paranormal activity. Water is, as many know, a wonderful energy conductor. Now, although this proves useful in our daily lives, it is important to think about everything in context, particularly the paranormal. Many people believe that paranormal entities and happenings are energy-driven, so many experiences, some not all, take place near bodies of water. There is also a belief, if you believe any of this at all, that this energy allows entities to travel more freely. So with that in mind, let's talk about Sach's Covered Bridge. This bridge is actually referred to as the Haunted Bridge of Gettysburg. I'm putting that in air quotes. It's 100 feet long, 15 feet wide, and she's gorgeous. We have a lot of covered bridges here in Pennsylvania, so this looks no surprise to us. It is your quintessential red covered bridge. Now, this was actually used by both Confederate and Union troops throughout the Battle of Gettysburg. Fun fact. But let's discuss the history first, shall we? It was built in 1852 by David S. Stoner, which, by the way, what a great last name.
We've had a lot of fun with last names.
We have.
Yes.
I was just thinking in terms of like he worked with Stone to build this thing, but then I was like, oh, Stoner, haha, 420. Anyway, so because that's coming up, so I was just like, oh, why not? But anyway, it's 100 feet long, and it actually serves to connect the land that separates Gettysburg over Marsh's Creek.
Do you think they ever married with the Lady family? They have Lady Stoners.
If not, what a missed opportunity. I'm just saying, what a missed opportunity.
So the imp of the impure and jumping off bridges and stuff, they call that looking into the void now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The
Why?
thought of like, I wonder if, like you're driving, like, I wonder if I just drove off the edge right now. Things like, like how people like this thought just invades your,
Like what happens
your
if I
senses
do
like
it?
that. Yeah. Just out of the blue, you just get weird thoughts like that. Like, what if I jumped off, like this cliff right now? Like it's called looking into the void.
Wow. That's when you should call your doctor. On a serious note, like, that's not okay, in my opinion.
Well, there have been stories about that too. Like there's certain cliff areas and things like that where people feel like this pull, like they just
Yeah.
feel
The
like,
Bridgewater Triangle
right,
has
like they
a
don't
couple
normally
spots like that.
feel like
Yeah.
suicidal or anything,
No.
but then they go to this
No.
particular location, or like
Yeah.
you're saying, like a thought
and
pops in their head.
Yeah, looking into the void is not. It's not having a suicidal thought. It's just this invasive thought that just pops in, and then you're not gonna do it, but it's like, oh, what? Like that thought just hits your mind.
Yeah, no, I have.
Everyone has
that's-
had that.
That has happened.
That
Like,
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you're
What is
driving
that?
around like a
think
windy
everyone has.
road uphill, and there's no what's it called?
Guardrail?
Guardrail. Yeah,
You
exactly.
can't help but think like, oh, what if I went over that
Yeah,
edge? That'd be
exactly.
terrible.
Yep.
Listen, we're all friends here. I love you all. Let's not think that way. All right. Anyway, back to my bridge. Jeez. It does look like something out of like a Thomas Kincaid painting, honestly, in my opinion. It actually was designated Pennsylvania's most historic bridge in 1938. Another fun fact, and it is fun.
That
I
is
would say
fun.
there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like that.
Fun fact, keep moving on here too. It was closed to automobiles by 1968, and then 30 years later, flooding happened. So here's my actual fun fact from that. They got lots of money to fix it, and now they have restored it with steel support beams.
So it's car worthy.
It is car worthy, but it is only open to foot traffic right now.
Also makes sense.
Yes, people have like really pushed to get the vehicle use again because it's big enough to do it, but the preservation of it and the people who are in charge of it were like,
Yeah, you don't want some idiot to hit the wall or something
Yeah.
as they're
Yeah.
going over.
Yeah. So while it did go through some issues, fun fact is it's beautiful and it really is safe now. It's safer than it ever was back then when they were using cars on it. So anyway, to the actual history then. So when it came to Gettysburg, on July 1st, the bridge was crossed by the 1st Corps of the Union Army, and they marched towards Gettysburg. And then 4 days later, Robert E. Lee's army would retreat back over that bridge. So it was used. Isn't that great? Both ways, interestingly enough, yeah. Now, with that being said, it was a great place to hide if you wanted to run away from battle, because as we know, people were going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, realizing how terrible Gettysburg was and trying to run away. So the story goes with this bridge that there were 3 Confederate soldiers, and nobody knows if they were running away or if they were spies or if they were snipers. No one knows the full story. But regardless, there were 3 Confederate men, and they were on the bridge, and then people got mad at them and they were hanged. Okay, so one story is, again, these 3 soldiers wanted to run away, so they donned Union attire and marched with the North to get the heck out of Dodge. But when they were discovered to belong to the South, they were tried and hanged on the bridge.
Wow.
It's one story, yes. Another one was that they were spies and or traitors, were realized what they were and hanged. As you can tell, regardless, they were executed.
So there's a running theme here.
Yes, they were killed
Do,
on this
do we
bridge.
know who was in charge of the hanging? Was it the Union?
Yes.
Okay.
According to one side. And then when it turned out they were spies, I mean, it really just goes back and forth.
Okay.
Yes. But generally speaking, it was the Union who were supposed to have done it because it became this, warning, if you will. Don't mess with those Confederate troops kind of thing.
But that is interesting because, then they almost would have, like, if the Union's doing it, they'd almost have to be, like, spies to warrant a hanging because if they were, like, prisoners or just retreating,
If they were dressed up to pretend that they were Union just to get the heck out of Dodge, I'd be like, I understand.
I think. Yeah.
But no. So anyway, during daytime, beautiful bridge. You have beautiful streams of water, very elegant wooden construction. But at night, it is not so great. You'll hear the disembodied voices and cries of the people who are in pain. You'll also hear cannon fire and gunfire. You'll smell cigar smoke. Someone may reach over and touch your shoulder and tap you. You turn around and no one's there. But the coolest thing is there are lots of pictures and lots of reports of seeing 3 disembodied heads floating on the bridge because of the 3 hanged men.
That's cool.
Fun, yes. There also have been pictures of the 3 apparitions of the Confederate soldiers there on the bridge. Not just disembodied, but actually there in full.
Like in Sixth Sense.
In Sixth Sense, yeah. But yes, the biggest thing too is not just a tap on the shoulders, but they do hear people talking to them and seeing the soldiers and generals patrol the area. They also will hear the screams of people being killed, which is kind of horrifying to think about. And there are cold spots on the bridge when it's nice hot night, like in July. There'll be just these inexplicable cold spots. But as we mentioned before, not just the disembodied heads, because that's kind of cool, but this strange, dark, unexplainable mist just covers the bridge. At night. Yep.
And I've heard it's a hot spot for EVP. That they'll do a lot of ghost tours there, and there's a lot of EVP. And sometimes they end the ghost tour early because it's too active.
That was the story. I think you actually had started telling it before.
Go for it.
Well, you can go ahead.
I don't know if I remember it all that well, to be honest.
Well, no, there was Amanda it was Amanda. That's right. During our interview,
yes.
They were at the bridge and they started talking. The guy's like, "Go away," and the guy in charge is like, "We're gonna leave because he's never been this mean before. So let's go. Let's go. Chop. Let's leave.
Time to go."
Yeah.
Although, historically, I didn't realize that was part of Lee's retreat route, but his. Like the just the sheer number of wounded on the Confederate side, it was a 17-mile long wagon train of wounded soldiers. And then, of course, they stopped, remember, for the war chicken.
Of course.
They had to go find Nellie Hen. And this is part of why Lincoln was so furious with Meade for not going after them, because they were like
going on one bridge, too.
Yes, like they could have been crushed, but Meade did not do it.
Actually, that was mentioned in my thing here, too. There was a really nasty comment about that, too. And there's Lincoln, because a lot of my stuff came from the Civil War Ghosts, but there's actually 2 pages that I didn't bring with me tonight because it was just like part of Lincoln's address and also the anger that he felt towards Meade for not, because there was a perfect moment with that bridge. You could have exploded the bridge. You could have just stood there and and they're walking by 3 dudes hanging, like just kind of like just symbolically showing that they had been crushed. This was one of the biggest Union victory, and it was the turn of the war.
Oh yeah, well, because ultimately it destroyed the army.
Yep.
The South's army. Like they
never recovered.
No, there weren't enough men.
It broke their morale too.
That was all the men the South had to give, really.
Yeah.
And and they kept dwindling battle after battle. But yeah, sort of a fun fact. I do know that Meade, his subordinates, called him let me see if I got this right, a damned old goggle-eyed snapping turtle. And if you look at him, he does have kind of googly eyes.
But imagine you just lost this epic battle, right? You've seen so many people die on all the different fields, picket charge, you name it. You've seen death. You've seen the valley of death. And then you're going across this bridge in a 17-mile long caravan, if you will.
Yep.
And there are people hanged at this bridge,
Yeah.
you know? It's not just the loss, the battle. It's that, too. All of those things together break your morale.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So-
and
could it
here,
not?
this is another statistic that I think is just. So the 14th Tennessee Regiment had left town 2 years earlier with 960 men. When the Battle of Gettysburg began, only 365 remained. By the end of the first day, there were 60 men left. By the end of the battle, remember, this started with 960.
900, yeah.
By the end of the Battle of Gettysburg, there were only 3 alive.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that would have been like a whole town. Like this
It's
was
a
a
whole
town that
town.
signed up together.
That's our town.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
I looked
3
up
men come back from
I
battle.
looked up our census and I think we have 974 in our town.
Wow. Yeah. So only 3 out of 960 from the 14th Tennessee Regiment. I mean, it's just, yeah, that's crazy to me. I mean, no, granted, there was only 3.
Again, that's
only
why we had to
365
reconstruct the
at
South.
Gettysburg. Yes. Yes. So hence the carpetbaggers and other things. So yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Anything else you want to add here? Gettysburg, Rain Man.
This is your last opportunity.
This is
Oh
it.
no, I got stuff. No, it's all good.
Give us stuff. Give us all the
I
stuff.
mean, I think we have covered so much here, and it's, I've learned a lot though along the way too, because there were so many places and things that I've not heard about. So I have really enjoyed this series, also because I got to nerd out on it.
So much fun for like when we have the opportunity to go back to Gettysburg.
Yeah, we may have to reprise this.
Yeah, I'm not an EVP person, but I would
location.
like to
'Cause it
EVP
really-
the bridge.
Yeah,
I really
me
would.
too.
Because I feel like as a result of the podcast, it makes for a more enlightened experience for when we
Yeah.
actually visit again. And it's been way too long.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Last
I mean,
time, yeah.
because I know that you and I, for example, have walked past the Jenny Wade house, but we've never like been in it, and we knew that she was the only civilian
Yeah.
casualty, but I didn't know a lot, any of the details. So
Her mom.
I know, her mom's fabulous.
And across the street is where, children were chained in the
Yeah.
basement. Yeah.
There's so much history.
I've
So it's
never
very cool.
even thought about the Daniel Lady Farm, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
So,
never.
Yeah.
I never knew about it. Never heard about it.
Well, and I think, too, if you're listening to this and, you want to go to Gettysburg, you'll be more serious when you're there, too. Because that's part of, like, what bothers me about going to some of these historic places. Now, it's because almost all of my family has been in the armed services somewhere. My dad died. My stepdad, of course, just passed away not too long ago, too. And they were lifers in the Army, Air Force, you name it, Navy. They're all my family. But, like, you are in these hallowed areas. You need to be respectful. Like, you're not going to go run around and jump over tombstones. But that's basically what you're doing when you walk through parts of Gettysburg, because you had people, like, put in barns, like
Yeah.
sardines,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've made that simile, that comparison so many times in these 5 weeks of podcasting. And then you look at the wheat field, that entire field was red. Like, you're walking on an area that was covered in blood and everything else, I think you need to be respectful.
Yeah.
And so I think listening to this will help you understand that, all of this is hallowed ground.
Yeah. I will say, for anyone who wants to visit Gettysburg, even if you live in Pennsylvania, book at least a night somewhere, because there's so much to see that you won't be able to see it all in one
absolutely.
day.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to get the full experience, you definitely
Bring your
wanna-
walking
Yeah,
shoes,
you'd want
too.
Bring
like
your
an
walking
extended-
shoes,
yes.
and you want to be there at least 2 days to see most of it, and get like shop. There was like some really cool shops there and stuff.
Get some cool
Oh, yeah,
hats.
absolutely.
And don't forget, you can go on those ghost tours, but the scariest part of the entire experience, PJ, is
The watchtowers.
be prepared.
Climb every single one of them. You really good view. Just watch out coming down.
What are you doing over there?
I was looking because I just realized I don't have access. I sent it to you though, PJ, the Frederick Strom story, because our great grandfather or great granduncle, yes,
Oh,
was actually in the Battle of Gettysburg. He was at Little Round Top. So Friedrich Strom is actually from southwestern Germany, and he immigrated to the U.S. somewhere between 1850 and 1855, and he volunteered for the Army. We don't know, whether it was patriotic idealism, adventure, for whatever reason. He traveled to Philadelphia and enlisted as a 3-year volunteer. And let's see here. He was part of the 21st Regiment, Pennsylvania Infantry. And so they were involved in a lot, but I'll just skip down here to the Gettysburg part, since that's what we're talking about. And so on July 1st, 1863, the 6th Corps, including, the 98th Regiment of Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry with Private Friedrich Strom, Fred, among its numbers, was encamped at Manchester, Maryland. Ordered to march to Gettysburg, they covered the 38 miles in an overnight march.
What?
Oh.
And arrived on the battlefield around 2 p.m. of the next day.
Good
They
Lord.
walked all night and most of the next day. And so they arrived on the second day of the battle. Between 4 p.m. and sundown, the 98th Pennsylvania Regiment was positioned near Little Round Top. From that position, they charged with fixed bayonets through the marsh of Plum Run, receiving fire from the infamous Devil's Den.
Yep.
They
Valley of Death is at the Plum Run.
They skirted the famous Wheatfield battle area, took some prisoners, and were then ordered to withdraw. Losses during the battle were light, 1 killed and 10 wounded.
Oh.
The 98th took no further part in the engagement at Gettysburg, but held its position for the remainder of the battle.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think that's very interesting. This is research that was done from a relative of ours back in 1981. So, this is all information that he said he took from the dossier of Frederick Strom provided by the U.S. National Archives.
Cool.
So, yeah. So there's a little fun family history from us.
All right. You ready to close it out, Laura?
All right. So this is a poem by Daisy Turner, who was a storyteller and poet. Her father was Alexander Turner, and he was an escaped slave who became a soldier for the Union. In fact, he returned to his former home in the South and killed his former overseer.
Oof.
And his daughter,
Jeez.
I know. And his daughter Daisy went on to become a poet. And I have to imagine that at least some of her works were inspired by her father, such as this one. Dear Madam, I am a soldier, and my speech is rough and plain. I'm not much used to writing, and I hate to give you pain. But I promised I would do it, and he thought it might be so. If it came from one that loved him, perhaps it would ease the blow. By this time you must surely guess the truth I fain would hide, and you'll pardon me for rough soldier words while I tell you how he died. It was in the maw of battle, fast rained the shot and shell. I was standing close beside him, and I saw him when he fell. So I took him in my arms and laid him on the grass. It was going against orders, but I think they let it pass. 'Twas a minnie ball that struck him, it entered at his side. But we didn't think it fatal till this morning when he died. Last night I wanted so to live, I seemed so young to go. Last week I passed my birthday, I was just 19, you know. When I thought of all I planned to do, it seemed so hard to die. But now I pray to God for grace, and all my cares gone by. And here his voice grew weaker as he paused and raised his head, and he whispered, "Goodbye, mother," and your soldier boy was dead. I carved him out a headboard as skillful as I could, and if you wish to find it, I can tell you where it stood. I send you back his hymn book and the cap he used to wear, the lock I cut the night before of his bright curly hair. I send you back his Bible. The night before he died, I turned its leaves together and read it by his side. I kept the belt he was wearin', he told me so to do. It has a hole upon the side, just where the ball went through. So now I've done his bidding, I've nothing more to tell, but I shall always mourn with you the boy we loved so well.